Rachel. We joke on staff, we have this saying, and this actually is true, on all of our job descriptions, it has like a list of all the things that we do, and then on every one, like ask somebody on staff, it also says, other duties as assigned, right? Yeah. So, and often when we're doing something like weird, we'll be like, other duties as assigned. So anyway, not that this is weird, this isn't weird, this is weird. So I was very excited when Rachel asked me, actually. I don't get nervous too much when I have to sing, but I get nervous. I used to, I think, a lot more when I had to speak, and when Pastor Jim first had me do a sermon, I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up at church, kind of nervous. It's not that bad anymore, but this feels great. This feels like, oh, it's a room full of my friends. And I can tell you all the stories I could never tell at church on a Sunday morning. So you get all that good material. So I was walking down the street. There's like a lot of other people here, a lot of other conferences. And I really am desperate to know what this one conference was, because there was a group of women sitting outside, and there was a lady reading to them from like a manual. And I wish I could have stopped without, because I was like right by them, and it would have been too weird to stop and be like, what did you just say? But she said to the other ladies, if you just mix your own saliva with some beeswax and tree sap, and I'm like, what on earth are they doing? And I thought, but you know what? Those ladies are learning something. And so I thought, Lord, I hope these ladies learn something. I will look that up and find out what that is, what concoction. I don't know. Maybe it was like a drink. I don't know. That would be a terrible drink. I don't know. Maybe it was like a poultice for a wound. Or I don't know. Anyway, it sounded like a cool group. So if you feel like you're not learning something, go down the street. But anyway, I am very, very happy to be here. There's a little bit about me. I got a little bio in your book, so you can, if you're interested in reading all about me, all my weird quirks. I didn't put all my weird quirks. I put my like more palatable quirks in there. So, I know what it takes to get here. I remember coming up to the retreat and all the things I had to get in place. Like, if it's work, then it's like making sure that like everything at work is handled, or if it's at home, making sure everyone's taken care of. And I know what it takes, and I'm just really grateful that you made the time to do it. I'm glad for you too that you get this weekend and this time to kind of decompress and be away, but thank you for being here. It means a lot to me, and thank you for letting me speak to you. I'm glad to be here. So I need to get my little clicker. Excuse me. Is that what I heard? I thought that was in my ears.
No, that was been going on.
It has. I don't mind if you don't mind. Do you mind Christmas music? Is it?
Just wait, I mean, you need to.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
right? I can sing along, kind of freaking out a little bit. Yeah, I know, right? That's funny. I was remembering coming to a retreat once, and I think now I'm hearing it all the time. Okay. Like now I can't not hear it, and I'm kind of like singing along. But if it gets warm, then open it up. That's fine. Wow, like I just said that, and like people moved. Of course, I'm related to half of them, but still, that's fine. So anyway, I was remembering this time I came to a retreat. So my kids are all in their 20s, but I want to say Josh was what? Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's married to my son who's about to turn 30. But for the moment, they're all in their 20s. So for about 5 minutes. Wow, now I feel really old. Thanks, Molly. 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks of that, yeah. I remember he was probably a toddler. Gosh, I don't know if we were I was with you, or we were at like, might have been Wolf Mountain, but Scott was in charge. Is he? No, he's not here, okay. It's fine, he knows the story. And Ben was like a baby, because I remember having to like come and pump. See, I wouldn't say that at church on a Sunday morning. Anyway, I had to like, I'm all had to pump. And then he had like all the frozen breast milk at home or whatever. And I was so worried, but I did it. I came to the retreat. I got home, and the first thing I want to do is, of course, see the babies, right? And there's Josh, who's like 2.5. And I'm like, what is he wearing? And Scott had him in a 3 to 6 month. He had him in Ben's pajamas. And it was like up to his nipples. It was like a crop top, and then he had like really tight knickers that were like constricting him. I mean, he was asleep, God bless him, but I was like, I was like, read a label, you know, anyway. But anyway, I had a great time. That wasn't to make you worry about your kids. I'm sure they're fine. You left them in good hands, so I'm sure they're fine, right? That's why, exactly. I brought it with me. So we're going to look at Ecclesiastes 3:11. This is the moment of truth to see if we set this up right. Yes. Yay. Okay. Yay. That's a good feeling. So it says he has made everything beautiful in its time. I love that. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men. Some translations say them. That means all of us. Yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end. So we're going to take a closer look at this verse and how it might apply to us today, and how God makes everything beautiful, and he does it at the right time because he's patient and he's creative, and unlike us, he is not in a hurry at all. So I love schedules. I feel really, really happy whenever I get a new planner to write it. And I just ordered my new planner for next year. I get the Passion Planner, and I spent a lot of money on it because I love it so much. And it has little grids, and I can color code things, and it just makes me happy. At work, at church, we have something called Planning Center Online, and it's what we use. It's a template to plan the worship services, and we put the announcements and the sermon and everything down to the minute. We could even do it down to the second if we wanted to. Sometimes Paul will put a song as like 4:06. I'm like, Paul's at really 4 minutes and 6 seconds, but I think it just makes him happy. I don't know. Anyway, it makes us feel better, like we planned something, I guess. And at home, because I had a lot of kids with a lot of activities with church and school and sports, schedules just saved me. I lived with a schedule. And I always made sure and put some cush room in there, especially if I was entrusting somebody else with the schedule, because things come up, right? Unforeseen things. There's always wiggle room. But even when you have the best laid plans, even then, it just takes one little thing, right, to go wrong, and then it throws the whole thing off. Everything's disrupted. And then when it got out of my control, as though it was ever in my control, I would feel really panicked, or I'd feel kind of frustrated with the day, or I'd think there is just not enough time in my day to make everything happen. And I found this quote by Cleopatra. I love it. She said, "There are never enough hours in the days of a queen." Isn't that great? So clearly we're in excellent company with Cleopatra. I like that. So when our kids were younger and they were involved in a lot of activities, I got very overwhelmed with our family schedule. Josh, he was my first, so he went to play soccer, so we became a soccer family, and he got to do all the things. And then Ben wanted to swim, and we were like, no, sorry. You can play soccer, because I saw those swim team moms, and they were like, that was a job, man. They were there all the time. I didn't want to do that. So Ben dutifully played soccer, poor guy. And then Abby was like, don't you think you want to play soccer? She was like, not really, but you were on the Mad Dogs. Yeah, it was great. And then by the time the twins came, we were like, I feel like we don't watch enough TV. Like, I feel like we should just sit down for a minute and just stop with all the hubbub. So they did not play soccer. We were kind of done by that point. So there's this movie. I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of this movie. It's so random. It's from 1980. It's called The Girl, the Gold Watch, and Everything, starring Pam Dauber. You know, from Mork and Mindy? And I'm not like saying, oh, this is a great movie, like go look it up. I'm sure it was stupid, but I remember it because, and Robert Hayes was the guy in it. You remember him? He was always on the Love Boat. Anyway, right? Yeah, Airplane. Anyway, he inherits this timepiece. It's a magical timepiece he inherits from his grandfather, and it has this inscription in it that says, time stops for one man, instead of no man. And basically, he could click it and stop time except for himself, or if he was holding Pam Dauber's hand, then he could stop time for everybody else, and then he could go like, I don't know, take care of the bad guys or like get out of a bad situation, and then he could click it back on, and so he could operate within that. And that's all I remember of the movie. I don't remember anything else, but I have thought about that stopwatch for years. Like there's been so many times in my life where I thought, well, you know, Robert Hayes and that stopwatch would come in handy right about now. I was on a first date with somebody, not Scott, a long time ago, and we had gone out to dinner at Marie Callender's. Remember Marie Callender's? Where's Ann? You will love this. Okay, I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee so bad. Anyway, and it was like we had all this water and soda, but I was like a first date, and I was so embarrassed that I didn't want to I didn't know where the bathroom was, and I thought, oh, we'll go home. And then we walked by, and I'm like, oh, you know when you miss that window of opportunity, and you're like, ah. And then we're in the car, and then he kept talking after we pulled up at my apartment complex, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I don't remember a thing he said. I just really had to use the bathroom. And I kept thinking about Robert Hayes. I was like, man, if I had that stopwatch right now, that'd be so great. It's so great. Anyway, now you'll all think about it too. But the truth is we can't stop time, right? We don't have a magic stopwatch. And we can't manufacture extra time because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We don't have any more than that or any less than that. So I want you to take a few minutes and think about an average day in your life. And if you have your folders, there's like a notes section, and the very first thing you'll see is like an activity log. I think it says like a 24 activity log, and it says like morning and nighttime, basically. If you could kind of jot down where you spend your time, like what do you do when you wake up? You don't have to be like, I brush my teeth, and then but what are the things that you do? Kind of write that down in order. Think about how you spend that time, and then I'll bring us back together in a minute. I forgot to advance. Okay. Are you thinking about things you do during the day that are funny? No.
I'm laughing at the new retired woman.
Oh, because she's retired, whatever. Tom feeds me, I go shopping. If it's true, write it down. A lot of you are finished, so go ahead and keep writing it. But if you like shout out a few to me, I'd like to write some of those down. So maybe if you're willing to share, what are some of the things you do in a 24-hour period? Tai Chi. Wow. Krista, that's great. Okay, no, that's good. Did I spell that right, Krista? I don't know. Okay, good. Lisa? Oh, I love that. Praise God for another day. App. Coffee. I have tendonitis. This is going to be super sloppy. So. Yeah, just a minute. Yeah. Molly's like, hi. Is your hand okay? Okay, great.
My left hand.
Okay. Abby said coffee.
I make a breakfast smoothie for my
That's nice.
So he gets all his vegetables.
That's how he gets vegetables. Does he know what's in it? Do you tell him it's a blueberry smoothie and then it's got like kale? Yeah, that's good. We'll never tell. This is like Vegas and here it stays right here. All right. Yeah.
I grab a cup of hot tea, sit out in my patio, read my Bible, and watch the birds for my beautiful.
Oh, that's sweet. Like a quiet time or, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I know, right? Somebody say something over here? I missed it. Oh, yeah. You do chase your boys. Yes. Yes.
Cartoons?
Cartoons? Yes, nice. Mm-hmm.
Chicken noodles.
Yeah, Dee Dee.
Wordle.
Wordle, absolutely. Can I just take a minute and thank you, Dee Dee, for being a safe place for all of us to post our Wordle every day. I do my Wordle and then I go right to Facebook. Oh, thank you, Dee Dee. I can post my Wordle. Thanks. Yeah.
Chicken noodles for o'clock is very well slept.
You do what?
Chicken noodles.
Oh, chicken duties. Oh, nice. All right, good. Like chores. Yeah. What, Sharon? Oh, did you say one, Sharon? Read. Nice. Work. Hello. There you go. Yeah. Okay, good. I think a big thing. Sleep, anybody? No, I don't know. I guess that's from when you wake up Tuesday. I might take a nap sometime. Laundry. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chores. Yeah.
Walk the dog.
Read scripture. Nice. Yeah. Oh, walk your dog. Yeah. Just walk. Yeah. Exercise. Yeah. Go out to lunch? Oh, you're jumping to lunch. I'm like, go out to lunch? Sure. Yeah. No, anytime.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna jump to lunch.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Eat.
Do the bills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Feed my husband.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
other pets?
And the pets, yes.
And the other pets are like,
Clean the dishes.
All right, thank you, I like that. So, thanks, Mom.
Music up there.
Music?
Gotta have music in the morning.
I love that, that's a great idea. That's actually a very encouraging list, I think. It looks lovely. If we were all like one woman together.
Lost my teeth.
Thank you. Yes, after I did that sermon where I talked about flossing, I told my kids for my birthday, you know what I want? I don't want a gift from you. I want each of you to floss every day for 6 months. I'll just leave it there. No, I don't think so. Thank you for saying that. So as we look at making priorities and managing our time, I think we first need to define exactly what we're talking about. So the New Testament writers use 2 different Greek terms, and it's chronos and kairos. And that's what they typically translate into English as what we call time. So chronos is that more quantitative aspect of time. It's units of time, it's sequence and chronology. It's if you're talking about the clock or the calendar, it needs to be measured or even kind of precise. And kairos is more qualitative aspect of time, like when something special happens. It's used a lot more often in the Bible, I found out. I thought that was interesting, more than chronos is used. It can be translated as a season or when something important happens at just the right time. So kairos could be when we say, everyone had a good time at the party. That's that use of time. Chronos would be like, what time is the party? So anyway, I thought that was kind of helpful. As a society, and I think particularly our Western culture, I think we tend to think more in terms of, sorry about my mic. You guys hearing me okay? Keep hitting it. Here, we think more in terms of chronos than we do kairos, especially if we get really focused on our task and our schedule. But often, the Bible is referring to kairos. So you have to be careful when you read the Bible that you're reading it with that filter and not your chronos filter. Because I think in a way, it's the Bible, it's the Word of God saying that timing is more important than time. So God is sovereign. He created time. It did not exist prior to creation. He created it. And I think it's a gift he created, I think, to direct us to him. So we make schedules and plans, and I think somehow we think we're in control when we do that of our life events. But we're always walking that balance, right, of what we can do, what's in our control, which I think is basically nothing, or not a lot, really. I think we're supposed to be good stewards of our time and our resources, but we start believing when we do that we're in charge somehow and that we determine the timing of everything. And I think that can leave us feeling frustrated. I know for me, it leaves me feeling a little bit entitled when it doesn't go my way. I feel like it should be going the way I want it to. It doesn't mean that chronos isn't important, because we still need to exercise wisdom when we're talking about our day and we're prioritizing our time. So we need to decide how we make time for what is most important. It doesn't mean you're creating more time, right? Because only God can make more time, and he's given us 24 hours. But it does mean that you're carving out space, though, in your schedule by eliminating something else, because time is a limited resource. There's only so much of it. So if you don't make those intentional decisions about your time, then it will get decided for you. So how do we practically go about being wise with our time? What steps can you take to do that? And I think one of the first things is self-evaluation and reflection. So I was telling you that I just ordered my new Passion Planner. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like my Passion Planner. It's a combination like calendar journal, and there's these great questions at the end of every month. So like tonight's the end of the month. It asks me questions like, how did you spend your time? Who are you grateful for? What would you change about how this, as you look back on the month, any changes you want to make with it? I think in general, it's good for us to be asking those questions of ourselves. Are you pouring into a lot of other lives and maybe not as much in your own? Do you have too many people you're caring for? Are there people you should be investing in and you're not making time for that? Are you getting enough sleep? I think that's a really important question. I think we often say, oh, I'm so tired, and we sort of like operate on this just being weary and tired all the time, and it's not good. There's a reason we need to rest. I think an excellent rubric to pray about also in determining your calendar is what's good, what's better, and what's best. So if it's all good stuff, You're looking at your life, well, it's all good. I don't know what to get rid of. Everything is soul-soothing and life-affirming stuff, but what's the best? What's the right thing right now? Because it isn't like most of you are saying, should I rob this jewelry store? Or should I teach Sunday school, right? It's like never that cut and dried of a decision. It's things like, oh, should I have lunch with my friend who's really hurting? Or should I put in extra hours at work because things are piling up and I want to be a good employee? Or should I hold my child that's crying? Or should I have a quiet time, right? It's all good. It's all necessary. And I think it's so personal because it's different for everyone, and every day and every week and every month is different. So you need to be smart with your time and ask God to help you determine what's good, what's better, and what's best. And then don't make those choices by yourself. You consider the other people in your life who are going to be affected by the choices that you make. You ask people who know you really well, who are wise and objective, who you see doing a great job balancing their life. Ask them. And then abide. So a life lived in true, deep connection with the Lord is going to reflect his character, and it's going to reflect what's important to him, and then that will become increasingly important to you. So ask the Lord what he would like from you. What do you want my day to look like? Ask him. In her book, Abide, by Macrina Whitaker, it's a great book. I'll probably quote it several times this weekend, and I have it back on the book table. She says, draw me like a magnet into the abiding love of God. How lovely would that be? To be drawn like a magnet into the abiding love of God. To live that closely intertwined with him. Prayerfully and thoughtfully move through your day, walking in obedience and abiding in him, just being close to him. And then be smart with the time you have. Ask God for wisdom. I love this quote by author Jen Hatmaker. She says, there are only 24 hours in a day. We need to quit trying to be awesome and instead be wise. Quit trying to be awesome and instead be wise. Don't spend your time trying to do more or be more or look better or try to keep up with somebody else. Be wise and thoughtful and discerning with your time. Like we said, it's a precious gift and it's a very limited resource. James 1:5 instructs us, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should look to God who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So you exercise wisdom over watching what others are doing, because comparison to others and where they are is not going to bless you. You're looking to God for wisdom. Be really careful with the influence of social media and what it seems like others are doing with their time. We all know that's a skewed perspective, right? For all of us, that's just one thing you're seeing. I'm not going to write on, Facebook about like the crappy day I had with my kids or whatever. I'm gonna say, here's a picture of my vacation I took. So just be so careful when you compare, or try not to compare when you see what's happening on social media. It's so much better to be wise than awesome. So in God's sovereignty and goodness, we have to be patient. When we trust him, we can start to recognize where he is at work. And I think that's really what our job is. So go ahead and make your plans, and then you hold them with your hands open, you hold them lightly, and you don't get too attached. Because rest assured, he often has something very different in mind. At least that's been my experience. He's like, what do you think about this, God? He's like, well, that's great, but we're going to do this. Hold it lightly. Remember, it's timing versus time. It's kairos versus chronos. For me, I like to think of it in terms of big picture and small details. I'm a detail person, and I really have a hard time seeing big picture. Details are useful, and they're important, but I can get lost in there, and then I kind of lose sight of the big overall thing that's going on. So God, in his perspective that's not bound by time or by place, is the only one who's able to see the full picture of what he's doing. So no matter how hard you try, there are going to be some circumstances in your personal life or that's occurring in the world around you that you will never be able to see as beautiful from your human perspective. But the eternity that we're reading about in Ecclesiastes 3:11, that's something God put into our hearts. And I think he did that for a couple of reasons. And the first is that eternity is God's time. That's the timeline he's on. So even when we don't see something as beautiful or good, that's not how we would define it when we look at it. We can still trust that he's going to make it beautiful. And then secondly, eternity explains the desire we have in us for something greater than ourselves, and that's God. God is the something greater that we desire. So it's not about perfection, it's about trying, and it's about lifestyle. There's no perfect formula, no exact list of steps that you can take. So for us list people, that's a rough one to hear. There's just not a prescription for it. It's just doing it. It may not be your timing or the timing you would choose, but he will always be right on time. So when my son Josh was born almost 30 years ago, he was in a Frank Breech position. See, I wouldn't tell this story at church either. It's a birth story. Okay, so he was in a Frank Breech, which is like butt first. And I think I was maybe like 35 weeks along, getting close to about a month away. And I went in to my appointment, and they said, oh, we're going to have to do this procedure called a version where they turn him. And you have to go to the hospital to have it done. So I made the appointment, and on Tuesday, Scott woke up in the middle of the night in terrible pain, and I had to bring him to Mercy San Juan in Citrus Heights for an emergency appendectomy. And then Thursday, I went downtown to Sutter Memorial to have my version procedure done. Now this is back, we didn't have cell phones, back in the olden days. Anyway, I took my covered wagon, this is what I said. But there are no cell phones, how did we do it? And so I was at one hospital, he was at another. Also, it wasn't just a quick in and out for him. He was in the hospital for a few days. And so he was still there. And I was at Sutter Memorial with my mom. My mom took me there. And as they'd hooked me up, I didn't even get the procedure done because Josh was in distress. He had the cord wrapped around his arm, and it was like he was gripping it or something. I don't know, and it was making him go, and his heart was decelerating, heart rate. So it was like, oh, well, you have to have a C-section right now. I'm not even in labor. I'm like more than a month out from my due date. And also my husband's in another hospital. So my mom, how did she do this? She had to call, my dad was a bus driver, so they had to call the dispatcher to radio him, to take the bus back, to get to Mercy San Juan, to get Scott discharged early, to get to my hospital, to make it in time. And he showed up, and I'm telling you, he had his Jams on. Do you remember Jams? Like from the 90s, those pants? You know, yeah. Like the crazy, like MC Hammer pants. And he had like hospital hair and his little tag on. But he was there for the birth of his son. I wonder if I have the picture. Yeah, there we go. We all made it. Yeah. It was crazy though. It was super crazy. And I didn't have a go bag. I didn't have anything. I wasn't ready. I was supposed to be at work. It was crazy. And none of us were ready for it. I feel like the chronos of it was all kinds of messed up. Like nothing was in my control. It was just a mess. But it worked out so beautifully. Like we were all, I love looking at that picture with my parents. It was just, the chronos was messed up, but when I look back on it, the kairos was beautiful. It turned out so sweet. And so, now keep in mind, Scott had 4 stitches. I had 16. It's not a competition, but I won. And we couldn't lift anything. I remember the doctor saying neither one of us could lift anything. So we had to move in with my parents for the first 2 weeks because we had a baby and stuff. And how perfect was that my parents lived there, that they could take care of us. I mean, all of it worked out so well. Josh was healthy. Scott got his appendix out. I mean, it worked out so sweet. And when I think back on it, you know how you have those times in your life when you've laughed really hard and you can remember like those times? This actually in the hospital is one of the top 10 laughs of my life because I had just had him. I wasn't even 1 day post-op, and Scott was just 2 days post-op. And the nurse left us alone with Josh, and he was in that bassinet, the plastic thing that they're in. And I was going to change his diaper. I was a pediatric nurse. I'm not scared of babies, right? And I took off his diaper, and then I couldn't find a clean one. And we're looking around, Scott's standing on the edge, and I'm standing on the other edge, and all of a sudden Josh just pees. This perfect golden arc. And it hit the wall, and started going down the wall, and Scott goes, ha ha ha. And I looked at him, and I was like, ha 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 ha. And then we're both holding our stitches ha ha ha, ha ha ha. And we're laughing, but also super angry at each other, stop laughing, I'm in so much pain. And we're doubled over, and neither one of us could grab Josh, and it was just, the nurse came in, and it was terrible. It was terrible. But overall, it's a lovely memory. At the time, it was painful. I thought I was going to pop a stitch, but anyway. We want so much to control our time. I do. and what my life looks like. I want to be in charge of that. I want to be in charge of the timing of things. Ecclesiastes 3:1-3 has this list of contrasting, really opposite events. It says there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There is a time to be born. There's a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. There's a time to tear and a time to mend, to be silent, to speak. There's a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Matt Chandler referred to these verses as a list of ingredients God mixes together to mold you and shape you into his desired result. They are descriptions of what you can expect to encounter in your life. These are the seasons, right? We're all born and we all will die. And we don't get to determine the timing of any of those things. You don't know the when or the what or the how, but God knows. In some circumstances, you won't ever understand this side of heaven. But he has a purpose and he has a plan. Those seasons are there for a reason because he's a good God and it's all for his glory and it's for our good. He determines the seasons and he created time, and our work is to discern which season it is and then use our time to accomplish what it is he has for us. How we use our time and our lack of control don't have to be at odds with each other. I think we do that a lot in our approach to life, like it's us against God, or at least what I want versus what he is gonna make me do. It's this resignation feeling or this dread, but truly I think they can be a beautiful combination. So go ahead and fill out your calendars and make your plans, but then hold them lightly and don't get too attached. And then we trust God for his control and his perfect timing. Would you pray with me? Lord, I praise you for each woman here, for her faith, her courage, for her creativity and her laughter and her presence here this weekend. Would you bless each one with the joy and grace and wisdom and peace that can only come from you. We come together to give you honor and praise. We ask that you would help us to draw close to you, Lord. Please come and speak your words of wisdom into our lives. Help us to embrace one another, our similarities and our differences, our concerns and our joy. Inspire our hearts, Lord. Would you heal our wounds and bring your peace into our worries, bring your hope into our disappointments. Come, Lord, and weave your love into our fellowship here this weekend together, that we would overflow with grace and allow your truth to light up our lives anew. Lord, we love you so much, and we're so grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, we're going to take some time. You should have, I'm going to put them up here, but there's questions for us to do in small groups, and they're also in your book if that's easier. I think what would work best is just break up into groups of what feels good to you, like 6 to 8 people, like in a small group. And it could be with people you know. Just make sure everybody has a group. If you don't have one, let me know. We'll find you a group and go through those questions together, and then we'll come back.